Police Committee. Can I just ask you finally about pedicabs and enforcement on pedicabs? Now, I've always been a big fan of pedicabs until I got in one and was ripped off. And so I'm slightly less keen on them now.
You really don't take advice, do you?
But so how much enforcement do you do on those?
So, sadly, they are not capable of being dealt with through the licensing regime because of a case in the courts which got them defined as a category of vehicle of which there is no legislative trace. So they're pedal cycles. With a pedal cycle, you don't have to have a licence, you don't have to have insurance. The government are, incidentally, the government have got some proposals which will make it even more difficult for electric pedicabs to be dealt with, because currently, if you fit a motor, then they do become a motorised vehicle, and they should have a licence, and they don't. So, how do we deal with it? Well, actually, we have no powers at all. I wish I did, but I don't. The government has not given us any powers, so we encourage the Met, and this then has to be dealt with by a combination of the traffic and transport, the roads, the RTPC and the boroughs. We encourage the Met to deal with them on a different basis, which is about obstruction, about public order and the other offences that the drivers might be committing. And they do exercises on that from time to time, and they're reasonably successful, actually. But it's quite difficult because actually nobody's given us the power to deal with it. So we said to the Law Commission very strongly, we want the powers to be able to licence those things, because that would give you the power to ban them. If people are listening, it would give you the power to ban them. We don't have that power at the moment, and we would very much like it, because they do create an obstruction. They are they're in the vernacular, they're a bloody nuisance in central London. And the point is this: we don't have that power currently. Now, the thing to say is that the Law Commission's report was fantastically contentious. The Law Commission got more responses to their proposals to reform taxi and private hire legislation than any other piece of work they've ever done. It took them far longer to do. The draft bill that they've produced, we don't agree with all of it, though we clearly do agree with this. And the chances of it getting into national legislation, I would give it 50-50, frankly, and we'll have to see what new government does. But in order to get round the fact that people keep saying you've done nothing about it, and it's quite difficult, as you've heard, to do something about it, I've asked our General Counsel to draft a private member's bill about pedicabs, which we're on the point of finishing. There are some familiar faces in the Assembly and on the 8th floor of this building who might shortly become members of Parliament, and when they do, I will present them with a draft private member's bill for pedicabs, and we'll see whether any of them would like to take it through the House of Commons, because until they do, the only way of enforcing is to get the police and the borough commands to do something about the obstruction of the street, about bad behaviour and about the offences that the individual drivers might be committing.
The Mayor himself can put a private bill. He can put a bill through Parliament, so I suggest you ask him. He can do it.
The Mayor, well, just be careful. A private bill...
No, it's not... yes.
A private bill... We have a private bill in Parliament. It's been there 4.5 years. It's got 8 clauses. It's cost about £500,000 and we still haven't got it through. I'm drafting a private member's bill, which any member of the House of Commons could present if they get the opportunity, which very simply has in it the powers to give us the powers to deal with these things properly.
I understand that, but the Mayor himself can put legislation through Parliament, and if you got him to do it now, then obviously later he might be in an even more powerful position to help it through. Can I just go back though to the actually action on pedicabs, because the Met at the moment are doing something called Operation Safeway, which is they go out in rush hours and they stop cyclists and they stop motorists and so on. Have you asked them to do an Operation Safeway for pedicabs?
No, they deal with it differently. And in fact, the places where we're doing Safeway, you won't get pedicabs. The junctions which they're using for Safeway are junctions with a high traffic of ordinary cyclists and motor vehicles in general. If you want to deal with pedicabs, you want to be on the streets of the West End, Soho and a few other places after about 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and it's not the same thing.
No, but the point is that focusing resources in a short period of time, even just one evening a week or something, could make a big difference.
Well, they do that in the West End. The trouble is that you get rid of one lot and another lot turn up. In fact, there's a warehouse in Southwark which is full of confiscated pedicabs, but they're so cheap you just more. They are doing those exercises. Again, if you want to press them through the police activities of the Assembly, you're very welcome. They get in the way of everything in the West End. They're not a joke. Somebody will one day get killed. When they do, they're all going to say, what did you do about it? And I'll have to give them the same lecture as I've just given you.
Thank you. Can I just pick up a couple of things you're saying? You're saying it's up to borough commanders almost to prioritise this issue. Well, I know from meetings I've had with borough commanders, this is absolutely not at the top of their list. And having been out in Westminster late in the evening with some drivers looking at the issue of touting and going up to some police who were patrolling, they weren't even really aware of the legislation and what they were able to do. And particularly in places like the West End. Particularly in places like the West End and other town centres, like you've mentioned, Romford and Croydon and so on, it's really important that the officers who are out know the legislation and are able to take action. And I don't think they all fully do.
Well, I would I would agree with you, and actually it's a source of constant pressure which is applied from many sources because the police have got a multiple of responsibilities. But of course there is another inherent contradiction, which is in some of these areas they're only too pleased to get rid of people out of the public domain, regardless of how they go, and I think that's really unfortunate. We work really quite hard, and I know there's a lot of work within the police. One of the reasons that we're keen to get borough people into these exercises is so that they become used to the legislation that they can deal with. The trouble is, even the legislation is quite complex, because if you've been out on one of these things, in order to prove that they're touting, you have to go through a rigmarole of doing it, which is a bit painful, actually, and you don't really want to have done that, but that's the way that currently that the law is constructed. But I agree with you. It would be extremely helpful if more borough police officers, who particularly in those places, understood the nature of the law and what it meant.
Lovely. Well, I'm sure. So Joni and I both are on the Police and Crime Committee. We will pick that up. I also just wanted to pick up